Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick, two-part extravaganza with Francis and Bibbs. Alonso, The Flash, Season 1, Episode 8, Flash versus Arrow, and Arrow, The Brave and the Bold. I really enjoyed these.
This was the best episode of The Flash. Holy crap.
It was like you have that battle when you're a little kid and you're like, no, my superhero's better than your superhero, and then they actually get to fight each other and you get to see it. I loved Cisco and you told me
Diggle.
Yeah.
Cisco and Diggle had the voice of the audience, didn't they? Like throughout it. Like, well, he's fast. Oh, but he's experienced.
Diggle's reaction to seeing the Flash for the first time is, "You're fast." That doesn't creep you out, and then when he leaves the frame, he won't take his eyes off of it. He's such a dry wit on that one. He was really funny.
This felt to me better than most sort of, even like in comic books when they do these kind of crossovers, they so often just kind of feel like ka-chunk and ka-chunk, and they don't really like meld at all. And I really enjoyed what these characters kind of bring out of each other and sort of can teach each other.
Yeah, they represent different sides of the superhero spectrum, and that isn't just like, well, now they have to fight.
Right.
It's like, no, well, we there's this great speech that Wells has about, like, you want to call him a hero, that's fine. He's not the type of hero you should be looking up to. You're different. You can inspire people. You can protect people. All you can do is shoot people.
I like the contrast in superheroes because I don't know much about the Arrow. As I said, I liked the episode, but I like that Barry is considered to be a hero in his town, but the Arrow is considered to be somewhat of a vigilante in his town. He's not been embraced by the police officers. He's that constant battle at the start of the Arrow episode where the cop's like, "I'll let you go on this one." So it was intriguing for me to watch that because it reminded me a little Batman-esque. He's kind of flying under the radar.
There's definitely kind of a, like, this is the sort of, like, lower half of the double feature kind of Superman-Batman dynamic. You've got the one sort of big bouncy Boy Scout who everybody loves, and then the dark shadowy guy who people aren't sure if he's a good guy or not. What I thought was really great about this is that Arrow said everything to Flash that I've been saying this entire season.
The previous episode of this show talking about the Flash, you were complaining that he always just runs into every situation.
Bounding into things, never gives it a thought or thinks about it. And it's like, oh yeah, the writers noticed too, or they planned it that way the whole time. Maybe they were just setting this up. Maybe that's I guess so, but well played in any event.
Very well played. Sorry, go ahead.
No, just to have Arrow be like, you are fast. You have time to actually, reconnoiter and figure out what's going on in the, in the thing. Don't just go bursting in and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, yes, thank you. And then when he shoots him in the back with the arrows, I'm like, yes, more of this.
The thing that's really hard to write in serialized television is, like, especially in a show that's supposed to be just sort of fun and not like really complicated, like The Wire or whatever, is a character with a consistent flaw. The audience gets sort of just like, oh, God, get over it. You're not
learn something.
Learn something. And this show has done a good job, and Arrow did it too, of, like, the Arrow will have like a consistent character flaw, or Flash will, and they will eventually teach them. It is part of the plot that they do not start out being great. They have to learn it over time, and they've done a good job.
I will say real quick before I forget, we're talking about the whole being a continuing series and stuff. Boy, Eddie bounced back real fast.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a bit much. When Eddie starts off and he's canoodling with Iris, I'm just like, he is too happy. They're just screwing with us now. Yeah.
So, Bibbs, can I have you in front of the camera reenact your face when you seen Felicity Smoke have to get out of her hot clothing after he's thrown?
Okay, all right. It was something like, that's a little sexist. Now I just want that sweatshirt. I really want that sweatshirt, actually, the Starlight. Everyone gets to wear that, but me. I really love it.
I have to say, the whole, like, hot girls in labs thing was really underlined for me when Captain Boomerang shows up in the Arrow Cave. Yeah. And they're like, quick, run for it. And Felicity's like going, I'm on heels. This is why scientist ladies don't wear 5-inch heels in the office.
Go out into the field, for God's sake.
I love the effects of the fight between the Arrow and the Flash. They were incredible.
All the stops pulled out, because that's the sort of thing where
there's a lot of moving pieces.
There's a lot of moving pieces. It's difficult to choreograph. They just work very differently as heroes. And honestly, even just coming up with a way for the Arrow to hold his own in that fight must have been a real bitch.
Exactly.
And they nailed it. Like, it was cool.
Because that's something that I read in an article after the episode when they said, like, if only the Flash, like, At this point, it's good to have this fight because when the Flash grows stronger, surely there's no way that Arrow can keep up. If he learns somewhat of a martial art, that's what the article said. If he was to learn something like Kung Fu or something, then surely he can't keep up with him. If he can keep that speed, because he was attacking him from all different angles, but he hasn't got that fighting tenacity to kind of knock him out, and the Arrow's a little bit smarter than him. So I'm thinking if he grows a little bit further and they were to have that fight later on, surely. For a geek standpoint, I don't think they could, like the Flash, could be stopped by
From a geek standpoint, did you guys ever have the conversation who would win in a fight, literally anyone or Batman?
Yes.
Because the answer to that question is, does Batman have prep time?
That's true. Yeah.
That's it.
They do the research.
If Superman does a sucker punch, Batman's out. But if Batman has an hour of prep time, Superman's done. It's like it's not going to happen.
Now, did you guys feel like there was a missing act wherein the Flash and Arrow go and capture Rainbow Raider? That was so like, oh, that's happening off screen. Well, because we had to spend time with it. And not that they skipped it for wasn't more interesting, but it just felt weirdly like, oh, that's done.
I was confused because I thought when I went to watch the Arrow, they were going to show that. They were going to show that in between, and I was like, oh, they could. Wait, what happened to him? He just get thrown in his prison?
At that point, it's just sort of, it was almost like that bit in Fast 5 where, oh, we need to get more cars. So they go to this big car race, and then they just cut away. And it's like, yeah, we got the cars. Like, we don't need that race. We know that these guys are going to win. At this point, it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, although there is a weird, and I'm sure that I don't think the show's ever going to really deal with this much, but you have, with the capture of Roy G. Bigelow, the fact that Arrow gains the information of where this guy lives by torturing the suspect or the guy who has the information, and then, of course, they don't really like technically arrest him because, of course, they throw him in Star Lab's super prison. So it's like, are we operating completely outside the law now?
So that's another thing. Like Dr. Wells and Joe at one point were so critical of the Arrow, like for the way that he goes against the law to get and he's got alternative methods, but they have methods like that. They throw people in a prison without any
due process.
So they're kind of hypocritical.
There's a good line. I feel like we're talking all about the Flash episode because the Flash episode was great. It was funny. It was exciting. It was wonderfully well paced. The cast worked well together. The Arrow episode that followed it was way more of a mixed bag, and it was almost kind of a letdown afterwards. But there was a good moment in it where they talk about how because we fight metahumans and people who can turn into a mist and stuff, doesn't feel as real to us. We're like not really focusing on...
It's not like arsonists and organized crime.
Exactly. The violence doesn't feel real, and I suspect they're introducing that element so that they can get to the point where they can talk about how these villains are actually terrifying. Like they really should be terrifying, and that there's this sort of 1960s Carmine Infantino,
who got a shout out in the Arrow episode, by the way, along with Neil Adams.
And that's fun, but there's more to it than that. I'm hoping they're setting that up so they can play with it later.
There was a really good part in the Flash episode when, he was under illusion or hypnosis or whatever he was.
He got
whammied. He got whammied. But he did come across and he said something that I felt was a good moment in it. Is that he said these are feelings that are underlying in me. Like they didn't just come from nowhere. There was some sort of jealousy there, and I think the Arrow is kind of jealous as well. I do think that he does want to try and help him, but there's always that hint. If you've got a superhero and a bigger badass one that's got super speed coming along, the initial reaction is going to be, I'm a little jealous. I'm going to try and show him basically the ropes area. So I like that rather than just having the Flash be hypnotized, and that's the only reason he wanted to compete with the Arrow.
Yeah, I liked. There's a lot of great incidental moments, and I liked one of the ones where Iris says he's on my 3 list. Arrow sometimes forgets that Ollie is supposed to be like a celebrity. He's like a Kennedy. And it's just sort of like, yeah, I could totally do this. And he's right here and you know him. There's something really cute about that.
Now, I had never watched Arrow before. Yeah. Is the flashback thing like a regular?
It's a regular thing. So
because I had no idea it was a flashback until midway through. It was like, oh, that's him and this happened before.
That's the thing that frustrated me, I think, the most about the Arrow episode. And I love Arrow. I think Arrow is a great show. It's not firing all cylinders yet this season, but the first 2 were great. I feel as though this was a really good opportunity to bring Arrow viewers into The Flash if they weren't already, and The Flash viewers into Arrow if they weren't already. And The Flash was great. It was entertaining. It brought everyone in. It was great. Arrow was not as helpful, I think, in terms of introducing their situation, what they're going through. Certain characters only appeared in a very minor way. And even the flashback structure wasn't introduced very well. The idea is that Arrow spent 5 years away from Starling City on an island or elsewhere, as we found out recently. And every season shows both things parallel. 1 year out of Starling City and 1 year next in it, sort of like the Godfather Part 2 approach. And then the stories are parallel. It's about torture. Here's how we learned how to torture people.
Right.
Done. But yeah, no, it didn't play as well as it could. I was watching this, trying to watch it with fresh eyes, and it wasn't great.
Yeah,
and it didn't build to anything. Like the big Flash versus Arrow fight was in the Flash episode,
right.
And then the second episode ended with the Rocky 3 ending. And that's not as big. You needed a crescendo. You needed a big moment.
I mean, I think the stuff with the torture flashback was a way to say, like, this is when I began losing my humanity, and when do I stop losing my humanity? Maybe today is that day,
Yeah.
But it was a little clunky.
Well,
it could have been better.
In terms of the ratings that I looked at after, the Flash ratings were through the roof, basically compared to any of the other episodes before. So it was great, as you said, for cross promotion.
Smart synergy.
Yeah. To get the Flash episode, to get it out there, because we've said it all along. We think it's a good show, but it's just that way people.
And they were wise enough to know that this is the one where we need to bring our
yes.
in. And there were so many great moments. In this episode, right now, I bet you say that to all the girls. What other girls? I was like, oh, that's a great line. Boom! Awesome. Or when Caitlin is running from the arrow, from the boomerang, and that was just the funniest goddamn thing. I don't know why that made me laugh like a maniac.
And I was thinking, I never watched that show, The Lone Gunman, the short-lived X-Files, but I thought, I bet it was like all of these scenes where the Misfits of Science are hanging out with like the Arrow kids.
It should have been like that. Unfortunately, it was not, and that's why I think it got canceled.
Because like that show, I'd watch.
Right?
Totally. The sidekicks, totally. Yes.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. And even just like we will talk about we will talk about you giving your enemies silly names later. Over tea with Huntress and Deathstroke? Shut up.
Cisco is by far my favorite character.
He's growing on me.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, two really fun episodes. Very smart corporate thinking from the folks at DC/the CW.
This is how you do franchising right.
Yeah, totally. So not since Archie meets the Punisher have I enjoyed a crossover. One more Flash before the mid-season break, and we'll be back with that next week.